So, someone asked a question, Josita Nobel. She's like, what are some of the steps we can take to make companies in Liberia public? What are the advantages and disadvantages?
Well, I don't. Liberia doesn't have a stock exchange, right?
No, not yet.
So Ivory Coast has a stock exchange, and so Ghana has a stock exchange. So Kenya has a stock exchange. So in order for you to take a company public, which would mean you offer shares available to the public, and if the public has the resources, has the money, they can then buy shares, buy stock in that company, and own a little piece of the company. So in order for you to do that, I don't know what the laws are in Liberia regarding this, but I'm pretty sure you could probably just do it as a private offering, right? Where you can, like for example, before Facebook went public, they go and they raise money through a private offering, which generally they're offering shares of their company to people who are already very well qualified investors. They're already rich people. They offer shares of their company. It doesn't have to be public and all that, but they can still raise money that way. So I'm sure in Liberia, if there's a company that's private and a person wants to kind of take it public, they can still do a public offering. You just have to identify people. You have to identify, okay, how many shares of the company that you'd want to give or you want to offer for sale, what price you're going to offer each share at, and who do you think would be qualified to have ownership? Who do you think would be qualified based on that amount? And then I would then market it. I would then go and let people know, hey, we're doing this offering on this date. And also you have to have a way to document. See, in America, you have a lot of the systems already built. Over there, you have to have a way that they can document that they're actual shareholders. So whether you have some sort of electronic system or you have physical share documents, and depending on how many shares you're offering, that you write down a number of shares a person buys at what price. And then if it's going to stay at that price, is it going to be something that fluctuates, or is it just going to be the same price going forward? Also, you want to let them know, are you going to offer more shares, or is this going to be the only shares that you offer in the company? So let's say you have a private company and you own 100% of this company right now, but then you want to offer shares to the public. So you can say, okay, just to keep the math simple, we're going to make the company, let's say the company is worth $100,000. These are just vague numbers, guys. The numbers don't mean anything. It's just to give math, so I'm using round numbers. So you want to offer 100 shares of your company, and you say, you know what, my company is worth $100,000. And you're offering 100 shares. So that means each share is worth $1,000, right? $1,000, 100,000. So you offer 100 shares. So now you have to go to people and say, okay, if you pay $1,000, you own one share in a company. I'm making 20 shares available. You can say that, and you can say, so you keep 80% of the company, you make 20% of the company available to people, and then people buy those shares, and then you would document, hey, here's what the share price is, here's your ownership, and then here's what a share would entitle you to. Here's how much of the revenue of the company shares would entitle you to, and stuff like that. So that would be the way I would go about doing it. It's very different in Liberia than say here. And I think somebody asked if you can.
And most Liberians are asking you to give more practical example about Liberia, because I think majority of the audience in Liberia, so they really want to know from the Liberian perspective how they can do most of these things.
Yeah, if you're trying to take a company public, some of the challenges you'd have to overcome, which can in some ways be simple, because you don't have a lot of regulation to deal with. So you could even take an ad in a newspaper and say, I'm the owner of this company. Here's the revenue of the company. Because if you're trying to get somebody when you're selling shares, you're attracting an investor to the company. You want this person to be an investor in your company. So they would need to know what the revenue is of the company, how much money the company is making, etc. So you can share with people, hey, here's how much money the company's making, all that stuff. Yeah, newspapers. I put in a newspaper because if you're trying to get investors, you got to advertise some way that you're trying to raise money for the business. You're trying to sell shares. So you can put in a newspaper and say, hey, we're selling shares in our company. If you're interested, call this number. If you're interested, we're happy to meet with you and talk to you about it and things like that. As far as somebody asked about being listed on another country's exchange, some places will allow that, but they do have revenue restrictions. What that means is the company has to be at a certain size, have a certain amount of income revenue coming in to the company before they will allow it to be listed on their exchange. So they have to look at your books. It's a much more detailed process. And we're generally talking probably millions of dollars a company would be listed. So generally some of the public companies in Africa will be a lot of banks. So the banks may be having a lot of revenue. In Kenya, some coffee shops are listed on a public exchange. Banks in Kenya are listed on a public exchange. So it depends on the company, and it depends on how much revenue a company's getting to be listed on another country's exchange.
So someone said, something about real estate being a long-term investment, and the short-term investments provide more stress to an individual. So what advice do you give this person? Maybe they're investing in risky asset and stuff, so they feel like those kind of investment is very stressful.
Yeah. So it depends on the type of real estate, for one thing. And it also depends on what kind of short-term investment a person's doing. So if they can give me some idea on what kind of short-term investment they're doing, I can help answer that better. But there's different types of real estate. For example, most people want to think of real estate to think of a single family home where one family buys a house, right? I bought a house today, great, and somebody lives in there for 30 years. I don't really consider that an investment necessarily. That's your house. So yeah, it can make some money and all that, but you're not really buying it as an investment property. Now, there's different types of real estate. There's commercial real estate where, like, shopping malls, shopping center. There's apartment buildings. That's also another type of real estate. There's real estate just for offices, where an office rents from you. There's real estate for, I don't know if they do this a lot in Liberia, but it is a big thing here in the States. Storage, self-storage. A lot of people accumulate a lot of junk here, and it can't fit in their house or their apartment, so they go and have storage. It's a huge business here. Hundreds of billions of dollars in that business. So it depends on the type of real estate. Now, if you buy real estate where, let's say it's an apartment building, right? So you buy an apartment building, because that's everywhere. That's in Africa, that's here. You buy real estate and there's people already living in that apartment building. So let's say you buy an apartment that's already there. The next month you start getting cash flow from it. You see? So if you buy an apartment building versus like maybe a person has to build it. So if you have to build it and there's nobody living in it first, then you have to build it first, then before you start collecting money from it. And I'm not talking about real estate in terms of I'm waiting many, many years for it to go up in value so I can sell it. I'm talking about real estate where you have renters in that are paying you cash flow every month. So when I'm talking about real estate, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about cash flow. You can't build wealth without cash flow. Cash flow is the key to financial freedom, because cash flow allows you to get money to you without you having to go out and earn it every day. So cash flow is the key to financial freedom.
Okay. Thank you for that. Someone wants to know something. She said, I should ask you about Liberia, right? Liberia lacks a system of mortgage payment in order to own a home.
Yeah.
Do you think it is wise for young married couples to make home construction their first priority?
In Liberia?
Yes.
It depends. It depends. It depends on the cost, because it depends on the cost and it depends on their income. If they have a good income and they can still put money into savings, I would say, because in Liberia, you don't have to build a house all at once. My mom's been building a house for years. You can build the house bit by bit. So you can buy the land and you start building it, you build the foundation, then next year you build the other part. So you can do it little